There we go. Morning, Carlos.
Good morning.
Let's start with your team news as per usual, please, Carlos. How are you looking? Any new issues coming out of the Swansea game?
Still, we didn't make the last training. We didn't have the last assessment to the players. Like always I say after the games, couple of players arrived always with some doubts. Let's see the medical advice today. Let's see how they react to the recovery after yesterday. After we did a recovery day yesterday, we see how they react during the afternoon, how they arrive today, and I will know more things after the training of today.
And how about those who weren't involved at the weekend? Anybody close to a return? I'm thinking Rolando Aarons once again not involved.
Yes, I'd say that the fact that Rolando was not in the team was just my decision, because I was selecting another players to play, because I was understanding that another position was more important. But like I said before, Rolando Aarons is available to be with the squad.
And Danny Ward's okay as well, just not involved at the weekend.
Yes, it was another of my decisions to play the game with Campbell, and instead to have making him the travel and knowing that I have two strikers in the bench too, because for me I had the option to be with Josko Roma and with Mipo. I understand that with it was more than enough to complete the strikers and to have him ready to the game of tomorrow.
And he was happy with that. You were happy with that. It was the right decision for you, was it?
Our decisions, the right decisions, you never know. If you analyze the game, you can be understanding that maybe work or maybe doesn't work. If you are watching about Swansea, like we didn't win, so you can be thinking that the decision didn't help in the previous game, and we'll see if the decision can help in the next game.
So how do you view it now a couple of days on, when you have done that research work and you've looked back at it again? How do you view it now? Why don't you think you got the win down there at the weekend?
I think in the first half, for me, we didn't compete the game how we had to compete in that moment, because it was clear that the playing outs didn't work. And for me, we were creating chances more than our attacks than the attack of Swansea. We know that Swansea is one team that always dominate with a lot of possession of the ball. And for me, in the first half, they didn't dominate. In the term that they can dominate, in the term that they can have the ball a lot in the middle and arrive and create chances and have many chances, for me, the chances that they create were chances by the goal was different, was the first clear chance that they had in the game. And it was because we didn't solve well one situation in the last line, something that we have fixed. So I feel full of confidence that if we have the same situation, we will know better how to fix it or how to solve it. But after their attacks arrive more from our losing of the ball in our pitch in defensive half. Then when you lose the ball in defensive half, you have the possibility of the counter-attack, and at the same time, you are not using the ball to create one chance. I think the team in the second half was attacking more directly, trying to win more second balls, because I knew that Swansea maybe have some type of problem because they are too focused to attack, and sometimes they are not too focused to defend or to win the battles in the second balls of the middle of the pitch. And I think the team was better on this. But it's true that the last action, the last pass, or the last dribbling, or the last cross, or the last movement to the box didn't work. That's why for me, even having a more control of the game in the second half, even the game was more playing in our offensive half than in our defensive half, we didn't create the chances that we wanted to create.
How do you correct giving the ball away in your own half as often as you did? Because you want your players to be brave, don't you? You want them to have the ball, to play the ball. That's part of the style that you want to see from your side. So how do you correct it when they do make mistakes that ultimately in the Championship will cost you?
First of all, the mistakes are normal for the team that try to play. This is something that is going to happen, because sometimes you are going to make the good pass, or sometimes the decision can be, like you say, is one behavior that is a brave behavior. But at the same time, you want to make a short playing out to provoke the pressing of the opponent, and if you break this pressing of the opponent, you are going to attack in the perfect condition in football. That means attack with a lot of space in the back of the defenders, with players to arrive there. For me, we had a couple of moments or three situations when if we had break the press, we have the opportunity to go and score or create the chance, and if we don't break this press, it's just the opposite. If you analyze, for example, the goal was different because it was not playing out, but was a high press that we did to follow, recover one ball, he drive. We have the option to attack with 4 or 5 players against 3 or 4 players of them, so it was an advantage situation, but we lose the ball in the driving of the ball, and they were creating the attack where they score the goal. So football, sometimes you have one advantage, and if you don't use the advantage, this situation is going to be disadvantage for you after to your goal. in the case of the playing out, I think in some moments you can play short, and in some moment, like the other day, when they were very aggressive to press and they moved many players to our pitch, the solution was more to play long and to be looking for Campbell and for Suarez Thomas, that they were playing like a strikers in our attacking defensive half, more than to play short, because the play short was creating their attacks. So sometimes it's just knowing when is the option to play short, when is the option to play long. And when you play short, you need to have that moment when you have the balance moment, that if you unbalance, you are going to have one chance, and if you don't unbalance, you are going to receive one chance. I remember one perfect example of what I'm saying to you was the second goal of the last year against Millwall, playing away, because I remember that game we were winning 0-1. We were in the minute 85 of the game, or 87 of the game, and they were doing a high press, and the team was playing short, playing out. But there was one moment that the ball arrived to Hogg under press. Hogg was able to eliminate the press. The moment the ball arrived to Bacuna was driving, OBrien arrived in one side, Pipa in the other side, and we scored one goal. So sometimes in the high press, when the teams are making high press, you have one opportunity to break the press. If you break the press, you are going to have one clear advantage, one clear chance. That is what we want to create chance. But if you are not able to break this disadvantage, you are going to suffer the disadvantage of the situation.
It's about making the right decision at the very right moment. Then it comes down to those little fine margins.
This is football.
Exactly. It is. That is football. Can I ask you a little bit? And I know you won't want to use it as an excuse, but a bit about your journey down to Swansea on Friday. I know it was a very long coach journey. What impact does that have on your preparations for you and your players?
Anything, because I knew that was a long journey. So as soon as I know that the journey will be long, I will need to adapt the week before or the days before. So for me, knowing that the travel was long, I did a very short training, because I think to spend many hours in the bus will affect. But as soon as I was surprised by this, I can tell you that this could have an impact, because one thing is that you prevent one travel of 1 hour or 2 hours and you spend 8 hours. So this is something that can affect. But as soon as you spend one travel of 6 hours, you need to know, and that's all. Then it was clear that we have the travel and we need to adapt. Like you say, there is no excuse, because for me, there is no excuse.
Would you have preferred to have flown though? I know in the past the club has flown. Would you have preferred to have flown down there?
Flown is to fly. I don't like a lot to fly, so I suffer a little bit when I am in the planes. So I tell you that for me, it's not uncomfortable to be in the bus. But it's true that the closer that you move by plane or by bus is the more comfortable, because of course you don't change a lot. But like I told you, we have another travel. We will have another travel to London after in the weekend. We are going to have another travel. Usually you go to Cardiff too, or to Bournemouth. So you have long travels, but as soon as you know, you need to adapt the weeks to these situations.
And is the plan for all of those long away games that are coming up quick and fast to go by coach as well? That's the plan, is it?
I don't know yet, because in some of these travels we have the option to go by in flight. In some of the situations we have that option. So depend. In this case, the club was preparing the travel by bus, and that's all. We have a lot of time to be there in the bus, to live together, to stay a lot of time between us together. So that's all. Adapt, face, and compete in these games.
Maybe you can go in the car, let the players fly. If you don't like flying, I feel you, I sympathise with you. So if you don't like flying, you can drive and let the players go in a plane.
Yeah, but sometimes we need to suffer a little bit, and it's just something that I need to face with myself. That's all. I am ready to fly. I have flown many times in my life. I don't enjoy it a lot.
But you've got to do it. You've got to do it, haven't you? Sometimes it's got to be done. Can I ask you about Suarez Thomas as well? We've praised him a lot, haven't we, this season? He's been fantastic at times, but he's had a couple of quieter games. Is that because the opponents are doing a better job on him? What do you think?
I think it's normal. I think as soon as it's clear that we need to support him, because first point, that he has shown that he can impact in the championship. The second thing, like always I say, and I say when he was competing well, that he's going to have one high challenge to be consistency in his performances. And the consistency is part of the skills of the players that are playing regularly in the championship. So I know that sometimes some players take more time to make the impact. Some players just make the impact quick. But after there is one part of consistency after you make the impact. I think Suarez Thomas have the conditions to can be consistent in this impact. Mentally need to readapt, because, for example, I was reading yesterday one amazing interview that I recommend to every striker, where Lewandowski was talking about his career as a football player. Then it was in El País, in one newspaper. Then he was talking that something that continue helping him is to remember the moments where when he was young and he was doing a good impact at the beginning. After, the reasons that support him to be this difficulty always are in his mind to continue make an impact in football. So I think in this interview you can read exactly what happens sometimes with the football players. You are going to have a fast impact, and after the opponents now, maybe in the first game they don't know who was Suarez Thomas, now they know who is Suarez Thomas. As soon as they know who is Suarez Thomas, they are going to be more focused on him. It's normal, and what you need to be is to continue having confidence in yourself, continue have the self-demanding in yourself to make you continue improving, because something that football demands is to continue improving. So I think you can fix this with a high confidence, with a high self-demanding, and to continue adapting to the different situation that that the football is going to demand.
Will you give that article to Suarez Thomas then? Will you recommend he reads it?
No, he has today, when he arrived to the club, he's going to have ready to read, because not only him, play like Josh Koroma, player like Mipo, so play young players that for me can have related with his career as a players and as a strikers.
Can I ask you about the morale, the mood at the moment? It's 3 defeats in 4. Have you seen any change in the core group of how they're feeling mentally at the moment?
I think mentally the team just have the desire to change this. We have lost 2 games in a row, something that can happen and something that we need to revert, because our idea is to change any bad negative dynamic that can happen in football, but we want to avoid and we want to go for the next game. Fortunately, we have just tomorrow immediately. So tomorrow we are going to have the opportunity to change this and to add a good result against one strong opponent, like every opponent in the Championship.
And what does your research tell you about Blackburn? They scored 5 at the weekend. They're a very attacking side. They're a side that can punish you on their day.
So you did exactly what they are. They are a very attacking team with many options in the front of the attack. Then we need to show our best defensive performance and to show our best attacking performance to can compete that game and to have the result that we want to have.
Thank you, Carlos. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Johnny. Stephen, we'll come to you, please.
Hey, Carlos. Yeah, sticking with Blackburn, saw last time, obviously, he had a bad result towards the end of last season. Are you sort of keeping the players reminded of that and showing them what they can do, or is it going into this as a new game now?
We go with this as a new game. And after 2 defeats, I have to remind that they scored 5 goals the last time. The motivation of the team is not going to be too high. So I think the most important now is to be thinking our strengths, be focusing our strengths, be defending our strengths, and try to don't show our weaknesses. That for me, the weaknesses are the moments when we don't show our strengths.
Why do you think those weaknesses have come out over the last couple of games? Because the side looked very strong for a few games before that, and it's mostly the same players. Is it just one of those things?
I think depending about the moment, I need to put in context the good results. I need to put in good context the bad results. If we analyze that the good result was against Reading, for example, was clear that for me, Reading didn't arrive to play with us with a maybe he didn't arrive in a good moment. And for me, our team was managing well, being in defense without suffering, without create chance, and after using the goal chances that we have to unbalance the game. I always say that there is one key factor in football, that is the goal. I think the goals can help you a lot to go for the games or can not help you to go for the games. But it's true that to score the goals, you need to create more chances. Sometimes you have to arrive and score 1 goal in one of the chances that you have, allow you to have after more chances because the opponent are going to take more risk, you are going to defend, and you are going to attack against open spaces. As soon as one opponent starts scoring 1 goal, for me the game is totally different because the opponent is going to protect more, is going to attack less, is going to defend more the spaces, and is going to change the dynamic of the attack. Always I say that in football is easier to attack in a big spaces with not many opponents than to attack with small spaces with many opponents. So I think the impact in the goals can change the context of the game. So I need to, that's why I told you that the context for me of the game is key to analyze the result that we are getting. But it's true that you say that we are playing with the same players, with the same shape, with the same ideas. So the idea is just to make it work again against the different type of context that we can face.
Presumably then getting off to better starts in games is key, even when things were good. Yeah, the scoring quite late on, weren't you?
Of course, this is one of the keys that because for me, as soon as you start better one game, you have more options to win the game. As soon as you don't start enough well the game and the opponent score fast, you're going to have more difficulty to change the result. It doesn't mean that it's impossible because against Stoke City, for example, we scored first and after we suffer one defeat. But it's true that after we score, in the next minute, they score two. So we need to prevent of that moments. It's important to manage better that moments too, because for me in that game, if we would keep a little bit the result, I was thinking that the team was preferring the game to can at a clear better result. But the important is what we are doing right now. The important is to analyze these results always with the concentration, with the focus to make us better team, because it's exactly what we need. We are at the beginning for me of the season. I always think that after the first 10 games, everyone start to be in one position more normal for the level, and we need to continue fighting to keep this position in the highest, to keep the team in the highest place, because I trust a lot in my players, I trust a lot in my squad. I know clear what are our strengths, and what we need to continue is to defend every time, every game, these strengths.
You mentioned you have a lot of trust in the squad and you've got sort of a lot of players. Why are you looking to stay with sort of the same core group? Is that sort of your first 11 and the rest are sort of there for backup, or is it about picking the right moments for certain players?
No, I think everything depends about the moment. Then as soon as we were winning the games, I think the reaction of the team, for example, against Blackpool, continue playing with the same group of players, that I always select the players that I am watching that are in front of another players. So doesn't mean sense to change one player for another one if I am watching that this player is in a better moment than the other one. Just because we are not getting a good result, I cannot just change. I need to be analyzing individually the performance of the players. So for me, this is the first point. Then the second point is to see how this group of players are working and which players are pushing and ready to help. So for example, I analyze now that the last 2 games, Holmes has had a very positive impact from the bench, playing the left side. Then this is something for me very positive for the team that is going to make us stronger. But if I know that if I put Holmes in another position, maybe the impact of Holmes can be less. So depend about the option of the player that we have. The other day, for example, Josh Koroma was in the bench, and Josh Koroma was one of the players who was playing in the first 11 of the team. So, and we were playing with Turton because I was thinking that for that game to defend better, that was important for me to take a positive result. He will help us playing the first 11. So always there are some small adaptations. Like I told you yesterday, Danny Ward is going to play as a striker if everything goes well today. And this one point that he can bring us freshness, and he can be the striker that has played another times, have scored 1 goal, and can help the team. So everything for me depends about the moment of the player, the moment of the team, the moment of the opponent, the skills of the opponent. And like this, we are going to make the decision. But it's clear that for me, some of our players are competing really well, even if we are not getting the results. The fact that just change the players for any reason, I am watching, for example, Matty Pearson competing really well. I am watching Tom Lees competing really well. I am watching Colwell competing really well. That's why I continue competing with Dell or playing with Dell, and not, for example, with another central back like could be Naby Sarr in the previous game. Just the fact to lose 1 game doesn't have to make me to think that I have to change 1 player if I am thinking that the player are keeping a good performances. So it's important always to analyze this more than the result. I have the responsibility to analyze how it's been the performances of the team.
Speaking of selection, you mentioned Jonathan Hogg asked to go off later on, and Lewis O'Brien went off injured as well. Are they likely to be able to play tomorrow?
They will be assisted today by the doctors, and after they will arrive at 1 because we have the training at 3 p.m. So I cannot give you this answer right now. I need to be waiting until they arrive here and until the doctor check them to see if they can play or they cannot play. I hope that both can play.
Okay, so just no idea just at the moment then.
No. So far no.
Yeah.
Until they be with the doctors, I don't want to know, because like I always say, the second day after the game, so it means today, is a key day, because the next day after 1 game, everyone is fatigued, especially of course when you have a travel, everyone is going to be fatigued. But if there is any issue, it's going to appear today. So that's why they have to be checking the player that finish the game with problems, like could be O'Brien, like could be Hogg. They will be assisted by the doctors today to see how they are.
Okay. there's not been a huge amount of goals from open play this season. I know we've talked about sort of building up the attack before, but how big a concern is that?
The fact that we are not having goals, we are not scoring goals in an open play.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's one point that we want to fix because we know that we are one team that we want to attack. And, of course, every time we have the ball, for us, it's an opportunity to create a chance. So, it depends because I'm watching some games like we were able to break the press and we were able to attack and to create chance. And we are watching some games where were difficulty, especially I have to put you the example for me of the last games. So for me, in the last 2 games, we have played against line of 5. For me, always is more difficult, in my opinion, it's more difficult to beat one line of 5 than to beat one line of 4. In the last 2 games, for example, we played with Nottingham who played with line of 5 and with and the other day with Swansea that they were playing with 5-2. It doesn't mean that you cannot attack line of 5 because it's clear that you can attack the line of 5 normally, but it's true that it's different. I think against a line of 5, another thing that you can have is more control of the ball because they have one defender more, but they have one player less to press you. So you are going to have the opportunity to control the game more. It was for me the perfect example, Nottingham Forest, because we had more, I think, close to the 68% of the time the ball in that game. So it means that when the opponent is more focused to defense, they are going to give you more times the ball. Then after it's clear that, like I will say, attack against more players in less space is the challenge in football, because you need to continue watching the space even when the space is reduced, and you need to continue giving passes when you are close to many players, or make dribblings or make crosses when you are going to be close to opponents. But at the same time, the option for the counter-attack of the opponent is too. So everything in football is like one balance. I think we have played 2 games against line of 5, but 2 different games. Nottingham with less pressing and more compact, and Swansea making more press. And it's true that both teams were creating problems that if we want to be better team, we need to face how to attack the deep or the low block and how to break the press when the teams are aggressive and make high press. So for me, all are different game moments, and I know that this team is going to grow, and this is my feeling, that we need to continue learning. We need to continue keep showing the solutions to face the different moments and to be a strong team.
You always talk about wanting your players to show personality in attack. Do they know that they are sort of allowed to take risks, that you're encouraging them to take risks?
I think football is always one game with actions where you have to make the decision between the benefits or the risk of the situations. So for me, you need to take the risk when you know that after you take the risk, the benefit, you say benefit? Yeah. The benefit is high. And for me, as soon as you are watching that the benefit is low, you don't have to take the risk. If you have one player with the ball in front of 4 players, for me, the benefit to dribbling them or the risk to lose the ball if you try to beat them is high. That's why the benefit is going to be looking for another player that can be free. So this situation you can be put in the different moment in football. So in some moments the benefit of the high press is too high, then you need to take the risk to make the high press and this protect a little bit your goal, because the benefit that you can take, even if the risk is high, the benefit is high too. Because if you recover the ball close to the opponent box, it's going to be always positive. So for me, always the key in football is to the measure between these things, how much positive things you can get, how much negative things in the action you can receive.
Do you feel your team are maybe being a bit too cautious at the moment on the ball?
I don't think so, because we don't concede the chances that we conceded the other day in the first half. So for example, the other day, for me, we were taking maybe more risk that we should have taken, watching the high press of the opponent. So like I told you, in the second half, what we say was take less risk, to be more early, to try to win more second balls and create our attacks more after win the second balls. So for me, what was that we didn't manage well the moments where we were taking the risk in the playing out, and we was the other day managing better the moment where we were playing more directly. In that game, it doesn't mean that in the next game have to be like this. Because for me, Swansea is better team making press than winning the second balls. So it was true that for me, maybe the adaptation to the game was not the right adaptation, or the interpretation of the situation was not the right way. So I am not watching that. I don't know. The fact that we are not maybe score any goal in the last 2 games, or the fact that our percentage, I don't know how you say this value, the G value, expected goals, is not being high, doesn't mean that we don't want to attack, because it's total opposite. We want to attack in the same way that we wanted to attack against Reading, playing with line of 3, in the same way that we wanted to attack against Blackpool, playing with line of 3. Yes, a different game, different context, different moments, different situation. And what we need to do is just take responsibilities to see how we can face better these type of situations.
That's all from me. Cheers, Carlos. Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, Stephen. Stuart, we'll join you, please.
Hi, Carlos.
Hi, Stuart.
Just interested to what you were saying to Johnny about the Lewandowski stuff. You're obviously someone like us who just really loves football and watches lots of football, but some footballers only like to play, don't really like to watch. How important is it that they do watch other games, that they do learn from other teams and other players?
For me, the most important thing is that the player have the skills to make an impact in the game. Is sometimes you can make an impact just playing, because like you say, some players like to play and that's all. Another player like to watch many games of football, but for me there is no difference between them. The important is how they compete, how they perform. I try to use example of readings of players that have done an amazing careers, because for me they can be perfect examples for our players, for any player, but especially for our young players that we are building them as a football player. So we have me with 18 years old, we have Corberán with 20 or 21 years old, or 22 years old right now. We have Campbell is total opposite, but even Campbell being total opposite, Campbell, you give one reading like this type, and he is still younger than Lewandowski, so still the same age, similar age than him. So still he's very open to receive this type of information. No? So I think it depends, but for the young players, to have example of players that have made something unbelievable in football always can give you some advices about how you can manage different type of situation. So if I give maybe the one article to one of my players, of one player that I don't know, the impact of the article is going to be less. But if you give to one striker the article of what Lewandowski is saying, the impact can be high, because they know that this guy have made an amazing career. So for me, in football, when you listen some of the football players, when you are listening them, they can give you many advices to make the career that they have done, because they can be in their behaviors, in the managing of different situations, they find reasons why they have arrived to that level. So I think that they can be as a perfect examples for some of our, especially young players.
So, I mean, you mentioned Fraser Campbell there. He obviously started his career at Manchester United. He has seen some of these amazing players firsthand. How useful is it to have someone like that who can just tell stories in the training ground about, oh, this is how this player used to prepare, or this is something this player used to do?
I think some of the strengths that we have this year is that we have many positive leaders inside the dressing room. So it means positive leader means someone that doesn't need to tell you many things. Someone like just with example is saying to you many things. Then I think Fraser Campbell is one of our captains, exactly because we know that he's a player, he's a hardworking player, that he is 34 years old, if I don't, 34 years old, and he continues being one of the hardworking players and being very concentrated to take care of himself and to always help the team in the different situation and the different role that he can have. And at the same time, of course, for the young players, to have players like Tom Lees that have made a lot of one amazing career in the Championship, play like Hogg, that is another of the captain, one player that have played even in Premier League. So for me, this can be a very positive example for, especially for the mix with the young players. They play like, for example, Suarez Thomas that you told me before, how to manage this type of moments. So for me, we have enough leaders in the dressing room that can help our young players to manage the situation, because they have the experience to have been managing this type of situation before.
And just on Sorba Thomas particularly, I mean, we've seen him play different positions for you already. Is he a player who is very good at learning and taking on board information?
I think Sorba Thomas has the skill to play. For me, he can play well in different positions. He started the first position that I was watching him was as a left winger, because I think is his more natural position, or was the position where he has been playing more minutes. But in one league, Another thing is the position that you need to play when you are in different leagues, because it's not the same to play in one division than to play in another division. I think for some players, sometimes the fact that you move them to back position allow them to make more impact, because if you are winger, you are going to face against the best defenders of the other team. If you are wing back, you are going to surprise more because you are going to arrive from the back and you are going to face sometimes more midfielders than defenders. So for me, in different contexts, you can find the best profile of the player. But I am honest with you, for me, he can play perfectly as a left wing back. He was playing there at the beginning of the season. He can play perfectly as a right wing back. He was playing at the beginning of the season. He can play in both sides as a winger. And I am watching him, one player too, that can play as a striker with one of the strikers, but not as a number 9, as a freedom striker, someone that you have mobility and can receive between the lines. But for me, between the lines is more difficult to play in football because you have in the middle of the pitch where we have more opponents to face. And if I am watching one player that if he develop in the right way, he can be playing even for me as a right back. If you want to take one risk during the game, is a player that can surprise from the back, because like I told you, sometimes if you play with offensive fullback, they are going to face more time in the attacking situation wingers, and if you play as a winger, you are going to face more time defenders. So that's why for me, sometimes depend about the player, the skills in defense, you can be thinking that one player can surprise more from the back than from in front.
But I mean, obviously you need technical skill to be able to play different positions, but is his intelligence an important part of that too?
I think have skills, determination. Sometimes the determination compensate on other things. Sometimes the technically compensate on other things. Sometimes the intelligent compensate on other things. I think the more of these three options you have, the better player you can be. You have intelligence, you have determination, it means the character, and you have the technical skills, you are going to be adapted to the different type of possibilities and situations. For me, Suarez Thomas is an attacking player. So this is the first thing that he has. He's an attacking player with a very good deliveries for the set piece situation. So this is the main skills. After, for me, he can surprise more playing from more deep than to play more high in the pitch. But to can play more deep, you need to have another defensive skills that he is in a process to add to his game possibilities, or to his tools or skills that he needs to have as a player. You cannot be thinking in him to play as a defender if he doesn't have the defender skills.
Of course, yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, Carlos. Good luck on
Welcome.
Tuesday.
Thanks,
Thank
Stu.
you.
Alfie, anything to add?
No, that's fine for me. Thank you.
Jim, I'm assuming you're there. Anything to add?
Yeah. Hi, Carlos. Carlos, in terms of Brian Brereton Diaz of Blackburn Rovers, how do you prepare for a player like that who has scored 7 goals in 9 games, and people are saying that he is technically the best player in the championship?
We prepare to play with him like we prepare to play against any of the good strikers that are in the league. The numbers told by the players, I don't have to say any word. You have saying the word, so we need to prepare just to concentrate and knowing that we are going to face a very good attacking team, and we need to prepare just to be concentrating in ourselves, knowing that tomorrow the demandings from the defensive point of view of the game is going to be high, because we face one team that can have different options in attack with a player that can score goals. That's why they are in the position that they are in the table. That's why they have the numbers that they have from the collective point of view, from the individual one. So we just prepare being concentration in ourselves, play with a lot of determination and concentration.
And Carlos, in terms of preparing for a team like Blackburn Rovers, and we mentioned the Brian Brereton Diaz there as well, do you sort of have to man mark a player of that capability? Do you have to designate a player to pick him up at all times once he comes in anywhere near your opposing box?
I think they are one team that if you are thinking to mark them, you are going to be crazy, because they just move a lot. For example, for me, they play with 2 strikers as a wingers. So it means that they are going to defend the action as a wingers, but they are going to attack as strikers. So you put, for example, fullbacks to mark them. That will be the normal thing of the closer player. At the end, your fullbacks are going to finish as a central backs. If you, for example, mark the number 10, Donald, I think is the player with one central back, he is playing as a striker, but in many of the actions he is dropping, is playing as a midfielder. So as soon as you are thinking to mark any other player, or you have Rodwell in the team, that if you are thinking too much with one midfielder, he's going to attack sometimes as a striker too. So you cannot be marking. You just to be focused into knowing that their wingers are going to attack as strikers, their striker is going to drop in the middle, the midfielders are going to make movement in behind, and the fullbacks are going to attack sometimes as a winger. This is something important to know, because you need to know as a player which is the player that you are going to face more times. If it's one striker, if it's one winger, if it's one striker that is going to drop, it's going to be one striker that is going to be looking for movement in behind. If it's one team that they want to play more short, if they are focused to the long ball and win the second ball, for me this is the more key aspect that we need to manage.
And Carlos, finally for me, in terms of Fraser Campbell so far this year, are you happy with what Fraser so far, roughly around 10 games into the championship? Are you happy where Fraser's performance levels are at and what he's contributing to the team, or do you still suspect more of a player who has played at such a high level throughout his career?
I think Fraser Campbell is one player that I am very happy to have with us in the team, in the squad, because I think his character is, for me, is brilliant. It's one of the best examples about character of the player. Then it's true that he had one stop in the preseason that for me affect him the performance in the first game. That was to have COVID, but for me he has faced, and he's in a normal conditions to compete with any of the strikers. Then will be my decision to see what he needs. If he's a player to play more games in a row, or he's one player to be more focused to play once per week. So we're going to see how everything goes to make the decision with him.